Welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. We're your hosts, Ellen Feldman-Ornato
and Jenny Drescher. We're talking with dynamic women from across the manufacturing scene in Connecticut. Hey, you behind the wheel, or walking down the street, or arriving at work. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Like, oh my God, there are so many parts in my life. How am I going to get through my to-do list today? I really don't want to open up my inbox. Take a breath. I'm right there with you. Ellen and I are on a special mission today to help you if you are suffering under the trap of overwhelm or the trap of thinking you have too many things to do and oh my God, how are you gonna get through it all? We're so happy to have you on the Shake Up today, friends. Welcome. Hey there, Ellen.
Hey, I'm excited to be talking about this today too, because I read something just the other day and it talked about, I think it was a poll that 67% of employees feel burned out. And
Ouch.
23% of the people who responded, they felt burned out very often or all the time.
All the time.
All the time they were feeling burnt out. And you got to wonder, in a world like manufacturing, where safety is tantamount to everything, what the correlation might be between people being burned out and accidents happening, or, loss of productivity, effects on health. So today we really want to look at what are some of the traps that people fall into that keep them from having some level of balance in their lives.
And why does that matter, right? So let's open with that question, because I think you're onto something really important for our manufacturing listeners, which is, so in our work with manufacturers, we are always asking the question about how are your safety records? And the reason we are asking that question is because we know that communication has a direct effect on safety numbers. Anybody that works in industry knows that. It's a no-brainer.
Table stakes.
It's table stakes, absolutely. But one of the things that I think doesn't get a lot of airtime in terms of how we take care of ourselves, there's so much talk about self-care as a nice to have, right? Like it's about painting your toes, or it's about just the nice, sort of the fluffy positivity nonsense. But I found this when I worked in industry, and I find it now that we've been doing our work as Boulder Company for a decade, is that I lose my cognitive balance and my ability to think clearly and make decisions and catch all the details when I am overwhelmed with too many things to do. And I think that whether we're working directly in manufacturing, any one of us, or we are, whether we're running a machine or we're running a computer, we can get into this fuzzy headspace so easily by virtue of thinking we have to do everything all the time. Cindy Bigelow talked about that.
Yeah, Cindy Bigelow was really eloquent when she talked about helping people to understand the difference between important and urgent, which is something you hear like, oh, you need to discern between important and urgent. But that means, I'm working with a client right now where everything is on fire all the time, not literally on fire, but everybody's priorities, they're always fighting over who gets the airtime. And, when everything's important, not urgent, nothing's urgent. And the important things like their foundational strategic planning and things like that get shoved aside, or is just really such a small part of what they need to be or that they actually focus on, because they're always running from thing to thing to thing to thing, and their priorities change too quickly over the course of the day. And then they get to the end of the day when they should be going home, and they finally have a chance to settle in and go, oh, look at the list of things I didn't get done today.
I think part of what gets in the way, you're making me think about one thing for sure that we've seen in our clients is that when they get into that headspace, And I've been in this headspace, and I'm uncovering it myself. I'm unraveling. I For those of you who don't know me out in the audience, I'm a recovering workaholic. If you're out there with me, give me an amen, because I bet you know exactly what it's like. So being a recovering workaholic, there's a whole generation of us that the idea of important versus urgent is not just about Eisenhower matrixing a decision. It's actually about really tuning into, this is what's worked for me, so I'm going to offer it to our listeners. What has worked for me has really been going a layer deeper with not just the discernment piece that you just described, but also what's driving that, really connecting to what's driving me to make me feel like I need to be putting out the fires. Right?
Mhm.
That's a question I think anybody in overwhelm or burnout really needs to sit with,
Yeah.
and sit with the discomfort. So when I asked myself with that question and I had to sit in that discomfort, I had to really sort of face a couple little demons, which were, the little scared person inside my head who was saying, well, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And if it doesn't get done, XYZ terrible thing is going to happen. And I
Mhm.
think that this happens way more than most of us want to admit. And it's as true in heavy industry as it is in, sort of quote unquote white collar labor.
Right. And when we're working, we're always talking about emotional intelligence and what our brain is doing on its own, right? Whether we want to be calm or not, if we're constantly telling it that something is urgent and something is on fire, then we never have the best part of our rational brain to be approaching things with discernment or calming down enough to say, what am I actually afraid of? So I love that you brought that point out. I also think that a lot of people, their success strategy is to take on everything all the time and constantly be proving themselves, which works when you're a sole contributor. It really gets you noticed, to work really hard, to ask for new assignments, to always be available to help other people. We've heard several guests talk about that. But Lena Galiga from High Grade talked about the fact that she really had to start encouraging people to, she had to pause her own instinct to jump in and help people all the time. Because what she
Mm-hmm.
realized is she was spending time doing their jobs
Mm-hmm.
instead of getting her job done. And she was actually disempowering them by solving their problems.
Mm.
So she had to sort of shift gears and say, why am I doing this? Why do I want to show up as the hero? And also, how is this affecting me, my performance, and my future if I'm always jumping in to rescue people? And
So
so it's
you're
not like
making
she doesn't
me,
help anymore, right? But she
yeah.
prioritizes getting her own things done and understanding how much it's reasonable to put on her own plate before she jumps in and provides that support to others.
Well, what I love about your comment, Ellen, is it's breaking out it's breaking a norm, right? What you're describing, for I remember this in the episode with Lena, was sort of noticing what is the norm. And if I'm in an environment where there is a norm that our strategy to get stuff done is to be hyper individualistic about it, then what we're going to do is we're going to miss the piece you just put your finger on. We're going to miss the fact that we're not developing failover. We're not putting people in place to be able to supplement where we need, and we're just continuing to pile that pressure on. So I think that'd be another question for our listeners to consider is, what are those norms and are they really working? Right?
Mm.
Like this question of really being willing to challenge. If you're a leader out there, we want to challenge you to say, well, this is our norm of how we get stuff done, but is it actually working, or is it just like a habitual behavior that may be having consequences that you're not noticing?
And are you optimizing your opportunities for cross training? Or are you in that situation where you have one person who does one job and there is no failover? So if that person calls out sick or that person has a family emergency or any number of things that keep people from coming to work, like the stomach flu that's going around right now,
Mm.
right? What happens to your operations if you don't have enough cross training? And are you creating adequate time for that to happen, or is somebody doing that on top of an already overloaded workload? So this is sort of a thoughtfulness about, where do I see stress points within my organization where I'm very, very over dependent on one or two people, and how do I create more bandwidth so that they can have less pressure on them, but also we have those failovers in place, and maybe some of those folks can actually help you to focus on what's important instead of always being on the urgent bus. Right? That's another piece of it, is how to use people well.
Well, the idea that you're also making me think about, for my fellow recovering workaholics out there, or maybe you're a wannabe recovering workaholic. Like you might be me from a bunch of years ago, where I was saying this is a losing strategy, just doing everything all the time, being at the mercy of the inbox, letting the inbox rule the day. Maybe you're ready to make a leap away from that. So I'll share another strategy that has worked for me as it pertains to the thing you're pointing to, Ellen, which is, I can't do my highest, best, most strategic work from a burned out place, right? We know this.
Yes.
But I also, if I have allowed myself to be burned out, and I have allowed myself to get into a headspace that says I have to do it all myself, there's an opportunity cost to that.
Sure.
Right? There is a big opportunity cost to that. What I've experienced, particularly during this past year, has been, as I have backed down from thinking I needed to do everything myself, and I've allowed myself to be more supported by a wide variety of people in our world, our amazing staff, our facilitators, coaches, our podcast producer, Gail. Hey, Gail. As I've allowed myself to back off, what I've discovered is all these places where opportunities I did not even know I was missing are suddenly cropping up like a crocus in spring.
Yeah. Well, sure. Because, and there's a thing, like, we do it to ourselves. I'm the only one who can do this. And then there's also the piece that my organization, I see you smirking. Do we have a cat appearance?
We have a cat. Yes,
on the podcast?
Ollie, the visitor, he's
about to leap onto the scene.
He is about to leap. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
There's a reason to watch it on YouTube, folks. There's cats and dogs and things. But the thing I was going to say is that we also get pigeonholed into what I call the curse of competence. That we're the best ones who do the thing. We kind of like the attention that we get from being the one who knows how to do the thing.
I can do this. I know how to do this.
This is my area of expertise, and only I can do it. And I'm blah, blah, blah. The challenge with that is that people start to see us as only wanting to do that thing. We're not demonstrating curiosity about the other things that are possible for us within our organization. We may not even be expressing it. And there's a couple of things that are baked into that. Part of the curse of competence and feeling like I'm the only one who can do it is the opposite of that is I can't do something else. So there's some fear in that whole part of, this is my domain and I'm going to own it. Keeps you stuck there, but stuck is comfortable. Stuck is you're not going to fail.
Ellen? Give us an example from your life. Where did you experience that in the last few years?
Well, I think with a lot of the presentations that we design, for a long time, I was in a space of, I have the best graphic design skills on our team, and I need to look at everything that goes out the door to make sure it's perfect. And so I would spend a lot more time than I probably should have tweaking PowerPoint presentations and not focusing on sales, which is the major function that I have for the organization. So, I get lost in the weeds of something that makes me feel good because it looks prettier when I'm done. And and that's not to say that I still don't want it to be perfect. Let's be super clear. But I'm willing to outsource that function to be able to allow me to do higher value things for the organization. So if I stay stuck in the graphic design hole, which is really not my highest talent, but there's almost no risk there, I feel better, but it's safe. Right. So it's not advancing the company and it's not advancing my career. So I would turn that lens back out to you who are listening to this, which is, what do you have a tight hug on in terms of your responsibilities, where you're like, I'm the only one who can do this and I do it better? Or the not the converse, but the buddy to that is it will take me too long to train somebody else to do this.
Oh, kiss of death. It will
Right?
take me too
It'll
long.
take me
That's
too
a
long
big one.
to train someone else, so I'm just going to do it myself because it's faster.
Which is a lie. Let's be super clear. That
Correct.
is a lie. Like, that is not true. I mean, every once in a while, we can get into situations where that might be true. But that, to me, what I've learned is that when I've had those moments where that's what I'm thinking, I inevitably realize, oh, that's very short term thinking.
Yes.
So as I've grown as a leader, one of the things that I've had to learn how to do is really be able to look at that piece you're pointing to about it's going to take me a while. There's a front load to skilling somebody up to duplicate yourself.
Yes.
And this is critical for our friends in manufacturing because they're doing the same stuff that we're doing. They're always growing their companies, keeping their eye on the ball, keeping their eye on many, many moving things in the landscape. And
Adapting to
that
change, all
trap
of it.
you're pointing to of that curse of competence or the curse of thinking I'm the only one who can do it, we do have to be willing to kind of dig in and do the slightly, I don't know, it might be boring work to actually map out, here's how I do a thing so that somebody else can learn how to do it. It could bring up feelings of I'm losing control, right? I've certainly had that feeling as we've been growing. It is, oh, if I let this go, I'm losing control. So
Yep.
friends, where in your world are you getting like an inner nudge, a little inner whisper from your maybe your intuition or a part of you that really wants to get fired from some stuff, right? You want to fire yourself from the excess things.
Mm-hmm.
This is an important one. We've done this a bunch inside Boulder Company. We encourage you strongly to do this, to say, you know, what am I afraid of about letting this go? And it's a
Yeah.
critical path for all of our small to medium sized manufacturers. So if that's you out there in leader land, don't be scared. We've done it. You can do it too.
There's one additional piece to help you. There's actually a tool. It's called Working Genius. And you can take the assessment and it'll help you figure out where your sweet spot is. But there's also a very simple sort of quadrant where one is, I like it and I'm really good at it. There's also, I like it and I'm not good at it. So there's an opportunity for you to get better at something. Then there's, I don't like it and I'm good at it. Those are the things that you want to like. Who else can I get to help me with this? And then I don't like it and I'm not good at it. That's like, how can I ditch that? Is that thing that I don't like it, I'm not good at it, is that truly essential to the work that you do? And what we find very often when we talk with people is their desk is overly cluttered with things that they don't like to do and they're not good at, or things that they don't like to do and maybe they're good at it, but continuing to do that is a hindrance to their career development. So to look critically at what are all the things you do, what are you holding on to that you could possibly help somebody else learn, and then because as you start to lighten your load, it creates, as Jenny said, those opportunities to go, oh, there's more that I could be doing that's different, that actually lights me up a whole lot more.
Mm. I want to give also, I want to give our listeners, I'm sure plenty of people out there have read his work, but I recently revisited, even though I swear it's like 15 years old now, The Principles Are Sound from Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. I recently reread that. So for those of you who read it a million years ago and said, yeah, that's a nice idea, but maybe not so realistic for me, go back and give it another read, because there were some nuances that I've picked up recently that I think are worth revisiting, such as the ones you just named about, am I spending my time in my zone of genius? Am I spending my time in my highest area of talent? So I think we could do this all day. I want to wind down this episode because
Yep.
we're at time for the day. So friends, we hope that us sharing our journey has been helpful for you, and we hope that you are finding your path off of burnout lane onto thriving road, which is a much nicer place to hang out. We're headed
Indeed.
that way ourselves, so come join us on that thriving road. It's a cool place to hang out.
And we will, if you check the show notes for this episode, we will ask Gail to add the episodes for Cindy Bigelow and for Lena Galiga so that you can hear what they had to say about important versus urgent and asking people for help and acknowledging when you need it.
All right. Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, y'all. The Manufacturing Shakeup is sponsored by the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing, produced by Maselli Productions and Gale Communications, and hosted by the Boulder Company.